Hi, I'm Melissa.
And I'm Melanie.
And you're listening to the UnderReported podcast, where we are your reporters, where we shed light on stories and crimes committed against Black women that are underreported in the media. Melanie, who are we talking about today?
Today's episode, we are going to retell the story of Asha Degree. Today's story is equally as baffling as it is heartbreaking. It goes back over 20 years when one family's life was forever changed in the worst way possible. It starts off the way many of us, parents in particular, end our days. Your kids are in bed already, and before you turn in for the night for yourself, you do a last kind of like wellness check on your kids. You go, you do a little sweep of the house, make sure doors are locked, windows are shut, and babies are in bed. And then you typically head to bed yourself. Before you know it, it's the next day, your alarm is sounding, and you're waking them up to go to school or start the day. But what happens when that next day comes and when you go in that room and one of your kids is missing? Your baby, your child, is not in that bed where you left them. Not in the room, not in the bed, not anywhere that you can find. She's missing. And not only is she missing, but all the signs are pointing to her not being taken, but instead that she may have left. Stay tuned as we tell the story of Asha Degree, a 9-year-old girl that's been missing for 22 years. Asha Degree was born on August 5th, 1990 in Shelby, North Carolina. And for context, because we like to give that on this podcast, Shelby, North Carolina is about 40 miles west of Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay. So it's not in the city, but not too far off from kind of one of the major cities there. She lived what I would call pretty regular middle-class suburban life. She lived with her parents, Harold and Akila Degree, and I may be pronouncing her mom's name wrong, but what we'll call her in this, for the sake of this podcast, is Akila, and her older brother, whose name is O'Brien. They were a pretty close-knit family, so close, in fact, that members of their extended family, to include Harold's mother and his sister, lived just across the street from where they live. So they're close. A close-knit family in terms of relationship, but also in terms of proximity to each other. Mm-hmm. They were regular churchgoers. They hardly ever missed a Sunday. And during the week, the kids were pretty active with extracurricular activities. So in particular, they were sports. They played sports. So again, pretty kind of regular middle-class suburban life is what I would say. Asha, in the year 2000, Asha, again, is 9 years old, and she's already a pretty fierce competitor. She's crowned at her school as one of the star point guards on the basketball team. And she's quite the passionate player. On Saturday, February 12th of 2000, the year 2000, her team lost their first game of the season, and she's so upset and she had fouled out that game, so she's so upset to the point of tears. Everyone is kind of rallying behind her and trying to encourage her and help her to feel better. And eventually she kind of gets it together and she stays around to watch her older brother O'Brien play his game. So they stay around, play the game, and then eventually go home. The next day, which is Sunday, February 13th, the family does their usual church going in the daytime, and then in the evening they prepare to get ready for the upcoming week. By 8 p.m., both Asha and O'Brien are put to bed. They are in, and they share a room. So by 8 o'clock, their kids lights out, kids are going to bed. Harold and Akila had plans to do a little pre-celebration because the next day was Valentine's Day, but also their wedding anniversary. So their wedding anniversary happens to fall on Valentine's Day. When they're kind of preparing for their night, a car accident happens nearby to where they live, and it causes the power to go out in the neighborhood. So any plans that they had
canceled
are ruined at this point. Now you're just waiting for the lights to come back on. Around 12:30 in the morning, or that night, going into Monday the 14th, the power finally comes back on, and Harold, as we said, does a quick round of checks on the kids. He checks their rooms, checks the doors, checks the windows. He sees the kids are asleep, and okay, cool. But he doesn't go to bed. He seems to have stayed up for about another 2 hours. So around 2:30, he's finally ready to really go to bed. And again, he does another check, just checking the house. Sees everybody is still asleep, sound asleep, everything's good, so he goes to bed. And remember, the kids had gone to bed at 8. So at 2:30, He's finally asleep. The house is shut down. Around 5:45, so a few hours after that, it's the morning of Valentine's Day, the morning of their anniversary, and Akila is the first one up at the house. So she gets up, her alarm sounding, she goes to the kids' room, remember they share a room, and she is like, all right, y'all, time to get up, gotta go to school today. She enters the room, and a quick scan shows O'Brien is in his bed, and okay, cool, time to get up, O'Brien. And then she peers over to Asha's bed, but oddly, it's empty. So I
can't imagine the immediate panic that runs through your body when you notice your child is not laying in the bed. Is not
in the bed that you left them in. Mm-hmm. So she looks around the room. Okay, she's not in here. So then she starts looking around the 2-bedroom apartment that they have, thinking, of course, she's here somewhere. She doesn't find her in the house. So she decides, let me wake up Harold because I'm not finding Asha. So she wakes him up and tells him, and he says, we should call my mom or my sister because maybe she went over there for some reason. Maybe we don't know. Let's call. So he calls his mom, who lives right across the street, and she's like, nope, she's not here. And so they start to panic. Mm-hmm. It starts to get real. The police arrive by 6:40 after, of course, they've called. And they, along with friends, family, and neighbors, at this point are now combing the neighborhood searching for Asha. Back at the apartment, investigators have begun kind of asking the family to recount the night and like what happened, over the course of the evening. O'Brien, who was 10 at the time, Asha again is 9, tells police that he did hear some noises during the early part of the morning, but it sounded like kind of like the bed squeaking, as if she was just kind of like tossing or turning in her sleep. So he didn't think nothing of it and didn't think enough of it to get up and check on her or flag his parents. So he continued sleeping essentially, but that was all that he could recall that seemed off. And that was all that they really could give police because no one else in the family had more information. So police, without much to go off of at this point, and knowing how critical these first few hours of a child or anyone missing is, they turn to the media for help. They do a press conference and kind of inform the public that missing 9-year-old Asha, is gone. This is the area. This is, who we're looking for, etc. So they're telling the media that. Media, of course, is broadcasting. And by the afternoon, police get their first leads.
This is very quick moving.
Yes.
This is very fast.
Yes. And I don't even know where exactly, so I'm not able to quote, but I feel like it is a well-known fact that like the first, 24 hours,
48 hours max,
are the most vital when it comes to like missing kids in particular, and maybe just adults included, but for missing cases, that first 24 to 48 hours. So they are moving really quickly trying to find, she's a child, she's 9. So by afternoon, the police get their first leads after the press conference, the media, etc. 2 different truck drivers call in and say that they saw a girl matching Asha's description walking alone on a nearby highway between the hours of 3:30 and 4:15 in the morning.
Oh, that lines up time-wise.
Because Dad, Harold, last checked around 2:30. One of the drivers found it odd that such a young girl would be out walking alone that time of morning. So he was concerned. So he passes her and turns his truck around to go figure out like, yo, are you okay? This seems a little weird. But as soon as he begins to approach the girl, she runs into the woods. And so he doesn't chase her. He gets back in his truck, and that's that. And so that's, of course, what he reports to police, and it aligns to this other truck driver who said that he saw her as well.
Oh, they were 2 truck drivers, not in the same car.
Correct.
Not in the same
Separate truck drivers.
Okay.
And so their stories are aligning. But that becomes the last confirmed sightings of Asha Degree.
Wow.
So.
And assumed. I guess it makes sense, but it is kind of assumed.
The following day, February 15th now, the day after Valentine's and the day after their wedding anniversary.
Oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Their wedding anniversary, Valentine's Day, and their child goes missing, all converging on the same day.
Yeah. The following day, police are canvassing the area, and they discover candy wrappers, a pencil, a marker, and a Mickey Mouse shaped hair bow in a shed at a business along the highway where the truckers said that they saw Asha running into the woods. The family, Asha's family, take a look at the items and confirm that they all belong to her. But that lead goes nowhere. That's kind of like, these are hers, Now what? So for the next 7 days, police are on a manhunt. They spend over 9,000 man hours searching for Asha. They're posting flyers. They're following up on tips, anybody who calls in. They're interviewing people around the area, interviewing the family more and more, trying to figure out if there's anything that they missed or that they're not thinking of. And all of it is to no avail. No one knows or says anything that leads to finding Asha.
Wow.
In conjunction with the area kind of wide search, police process the Degrees apartment. Of course, they're, looking at that to see if there's any evidence or clues, anything. And they find that there are no signs of forced entry. And at this point, Asha's mom, Akila, also tells police that as far as items that are missing, it seems that Asha's book bag and her favorite outfit are missing. So because of the items that were missing, because no signs of forced entry, the police believe and
she
say
got up and walked away.
That Asha willingly left the house in the early morning of February 14th with a bag that they believe she previously packed. She wasn't taken, she left.
Does she sleepwalk? Like, why would she just get up and leave? What would be the motivation behind her just leaving?
And which is the question, right? And one of the things that I was reading, that I can't even quote exactly where, but it was saying that especially for kids this age, there's usually a motivating factor, right? And a very obvious one, because they're
made me
they're
mad.
A child.
You didn't let me
right.
do this. You won't let me buy this. I can't eat this.
One of the things that had come up was she lost that game and she was crying. But they were like, she was fine eventually. Like, we were able to get her out of that funk. So, like, that doesn't make sense to be a reason. The family, like, there's usually some kind of family dysfunction or something like that. And none of that could be used as a reason.
So weird.
So it's just a mystery. It's confusing as to why this girl left. So about a month after Asha went missing, the family starts to make headway with the national media cycle. So they, of course, start with the local cycle, but they go big and they make appearances on Oprah, on the Montel Williams show, and even America's Most Wanted does a little segment on the case, trying to get, more information. And again, even with that, no new leads. It's not until over a year later, in August of 2001, before they would get their next tip. On August 3rd, 2001, a construction worker at a site off of Highway 18, which is about 26 miles from Asha's home. So it's not the highway where she ran off of, it's another highway, about 26 miles from their house. This construction worker discovers Asha's book bag, the one that her mom had confirmed
was missing.
It was double wrapped in a plastic trash bag and contained Asha's name and phone number, which made it obvious who it belonged to. Police come to the construction site, and in their review of the bag and looking at it, they discover it has a New Kids on the Block t-shirt and a copy of a Dr. Seuss book. The family and sheriff's office note that the shirt did not belong to Asha, and although the book had been checked out at her school, it wasn't checked out by her. So while it was her bag, there were items in the bag that did not belong to her. And that's where that lead ends. They get that bag, but they don't know where to go.
The emotional turmoil
from there
of lead, dead end, lead, dead end, lead, dead end.
Yeah.
Hopes are high, hopes get low. Hopes get high. You
just keep waiting for more. Somebody to say something, somebody to find something, but it keeps going nowhere. It is at this point that investigators have a change of opinion. They announce that Asha's disappearance is now considered a criminal matter and that they do indeed suspect foul play.
Makes sense.
Detective Tim Adams from the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office in North Carolina is one of the primary detectives on Asha's case. And he said in an interview on Inside the FBI, someone had to have met, or a planned meeting may have taken place, or maybe some stranger came along as she was walking and picked her up. But obviously, somebody has interfered or been a part of this case. She's not just still out there walking.
Right.
In 2004, about 3 years after the book bag was found, police get another new tip. They get information that an inmate at the county jail says Asha had been killed and buried at a particular site. The sheriff's office go to the site to dig it up, but only find the bones of an animal there. There are no human bones. And so that's where that one ends. It takes another 11 years before there is anything else new on the case. In February 2015, the FBI announced that they, along with the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office and the State Bureau of Investigation, were all teaming up to re-examine the case and re-interview the witnesses.
The thing is, it makes sense that they're putting this type of force behind and resources behind it, because if they think she just got up and left, that's viewed completely different. Than if they believe foul play was suspected. Runaway. Right.
Yeah. But this is a different case.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they all decide to re-examine and re-interview witnesses, re-examine the case, re-interview witnesses. In addition to that, they announced that they are adding $25,000 to the already established reward fund of $20,000. So there was already a fund for $20,000 if you had information. So at this point now, there is a $45,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for Asha Degree's disappearance. The hope, of course, is that this reward will motivate or entice people to come forward, but that doesn't happen. Nobody comes forward. Instead, in May of 2016, so a little over a year after they first kind of made the announcement about re-interviewing, the FBI announced that through their re-investigation, they now believe that Asha may have been seen getting into a dark green early 1970s Lincoln Continental, or possibly a Ford Thunderbird from the same era, along Route 18, where she was last seen that night.
Who owns this car? Who is this person?
This is brand new information, and it is 16 years after she was missing. This new information seems promising. Since that time, 2016, we're now in 2022. It's 5 years, and Asha still has not been found. And to the public's knowledge, this car, to our knowledge, everything I could find in researching, the car has not been identified. There's been no additional information. The latest information on this case is that in November of 2020, an inmate named Marcus Mellon wrote a letter to the Shelby Star, which is like a newspaper in that area in North Carolina, claiming to know the whereabouts of Asha's body. His letter said, "Asha Degree has been missing for over 20 years. About 4 months ago, I had found out her whereabouts and what had happened to her. She was killed and then took and buried. I do know how and what town she is in. I hope you get this letter and do come see me. It's on the up and up." Mellon is serving a nearly 14-year prison sentence for committing sex crimes against children in Cleveland County in 2014. So far, Mellon's claims have not been verified and are currently under investigation. So that was November 2020. There's been nothing new since then.
That time.
The Dr. Tim Adams, again, who is the primary investigator on this case, has said that this case is not cold, even when there's not announcing that there's new information. It is not cold. And actually, he's quoted as saying on that episode of Inside the FBI, "We're never going to forget. We're not going to let it go. It's not just going to go away. It's going to be a case. It's not going to be a case that's put on a shelf and forgotten about. It will be worked until we find her." It's 2022, and they haven't found her yet. If you or anyone you know has information about this case, please call the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office at 704-484-4822 or the FBI at 704-672-6100.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and our hearts go out to the Degree family. And again, if you have any information or tips, please make sure that you call the number and hug your kids a little tighter tonight.
That part. Bye.
Bye.